This is your host, Laura Winters, the heart-led pathfinder, intuitive energy healer, speech-language pathologist, and owner of Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC. Welcome to Miracle in Time, a mini-series podcast that brings you the stories of beautiful humans exploring the synchronicities, blessings, and miracles within our perception of time. It illustrates that events are not just happening to us, but for us. Life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, but it is a miracle in time. As a disclaimer, this podcast contains general information about various topics and medical conditions and is for educational purposes and inspiration only. Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC is not responsible or liable for the accuracy of information contained in this podcast. The information contained in this episode is the personal views of the host and guests, respectively. This podcast is not meant to replace the advice of your healthcare provider and is not intended to prescribe, prevent, treat, or diagnose disease. You assume all risks when you continue this episode. On today's episode, I talked to Patty Fisher, an amazing speech-language pathologist who I've met along the way, and she shares some beautiful insight into orofacial myofunctional disorders and therapy. Patricia Fisher is an SLP, a speech-language pathologist who works with Speech and Language Associates of Dayton, Ohio. Patty is certified in Lidcombe, an Australian program for stuttering, and Orofacial Myology. Patty has served as adjunct faculty at Miami University of Ohio and for the College of St. Rose in New York. She has received honors of the Association for Ohio. This is the highest honor given from the association and is a one-time lifetime award recognizing distinguished contributions to the field of speech. She has chaired the Consumer Affairs Insurance Initiative and Student Scholarship Committees and was the Director of Public Information. In 2018, Patty was invited to join the teaching team of Make the Connection with Dinah Davidson and Mary Billings. She completed a research project on orofacial issues with the Max Planck Institute in Germany. Patty was awarded the Connie Painter Distinguished Service Award for her mentoring efforts in 2021. She is the recipient of 17 ASHA ACE Awards for Excellence in Continuing Education. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and this miracle in time. Hi, Patty. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Hi, Laura. I'm kind of excited, too. I hope we're going to have some good times going over some information today.
For sure. So I met Patty at the Make the Connection course in Cincinnati in October of 24. So I went to get some training for orofacial myofunctional therapy, and Patty is one of the instructors, and she is so beautiful, has such great information, and is a really kind soul. So I wanted to bring her on so that she can relay some of that information to you guys.
Well, thank you. That's a great introduction. I really enjoyed that class. We had such fun because people who came were the ones who really wanted the information. What I feel right now is that we have so much going around, it's hard for us to focus. And I think that one of the things our undergrad and graduate schools do that's very good, we get a nice overview of things, but one thing is that things keep changing, and this is just another tool for our box. And I'm glad that, we're opening up and going to add it to what we already know. How do you feel that same way, that there's a little bit of a link because we don't get it directly, but yet we have to kind of seek this out on our own, the information?
Exactly. And it's maddening to me because I feel like it's such foundational information. This is it's just wild to me that this is not essential for a graduate program.
Well, and you know what? I was looking back through my undergrad and grad stuff, which was really long ago, but you know what we did? We used to study these things in every class, and it wasn't called what it's called today. It had different names. We called it anatomy, we called it different things, function, we called it all kinds of things that made sense in that class. Like what was the mechanism doing for voice, or what was the mechanism doing in stuttering, or what was the mechanism doing in making a speech sounds. And we had to learn it in those different perspectives. And then I don't know what happened, but I think that those parts, because there's so much to teach, I think the universities had to work around that to try to get as much in as they could, because they are teaching wonderful things and doing a great job, but I just don't know that they can get everything in. So
No, I completely agree. I mean, if you think about the umbrella of speech language pathology, you're working with newborns all the way up to people who are over 100 years old. I mean, so the continuum is so large, and there are so many things we work on. People are like, what does a speech therapist even do? Oh, we work on everything from the neck up. I mean, there's so many different things. So you make a really, really great and valid point in that they're doing the best with what they have, and they have had to shift. And it also goes to what are the passions of the instructors as well. You go to certain places because there are the people there who have a really great passion, research background in certain areas. So you can kind of specialize based on, where you're going. But for me, this information is just like, it's just gold. And once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. You can't unsee it. It's all over the place. And every little thing that comes up, it's almost like there's a tie right back to that. So to have this option of the orofacial myofunctional therapy that kind of encompasses all these pieces together and creates this beautiful foundation, and then you pull from, like you said, that true anatomy and physiology that is so important, and where our body really is, and then function of where we need to be going.
Right. Yeah, oral motor dysfunction refers basically to difficulties with the coordination of movement of the muscles, like in the mouth, in the face, in the throat, and how it impacts speech, eating, and swallowing. That's pretty involved, and it's sort of an umbrella term. So it encompasses various disorders that affect these areas. So you will see common symptoms like difficulty with chewing, or maybe difficulty with drooling, or difficulty with slurred speech, or difficulty making specific sounds, or voicing, or fluency. You see, it's such a broad term, and those ranges affect the muscles and the speaking, and it's really, to me, I've come up with a way to look at it that I can understand it, and I'm hoping that maybe I can explain that to you today. It's a simple way, and people tell me I think very simply, and I do, but it's one of the things that has gotten me through, so I understand where to put this information. What happens to me is this. When I think of all the disorders and all the problems that we have to face as a therapist, I mean, all day long, I mean, you're going from adult to teen to infant, and then is it apraxia, is it sound disorders, is it articulation, is it, a voicing problem? You really have to be versatile. But one day it just sort of came to me almost like, a relief. I was thinking, the thing is, your primary function of this whole mechanism, what was it designed for? What was designed for breathing, respiration, and for deglutition or mastication, to be able to swallow. That's what it's designed for. And when we're born, we have those abilities, and that's there. They're automatic. But what we do with this mechanism afterwards is that we take those basic primary functions of the eating and breathing, and we have taught ourselves overlaid functions, ones where the secondary thing is, now that we can eat and breathe and we're using it efficiently, can we learn to make sound or voice? Can we learn to make sounds in speech, to make words? Can we learn to sing? Can we learn to play a horn in the band? All kinds of things. But those are secondary to the primary. Now, when I went through school, I think that we always started with the secondaries, because I was working on speech sounds, or I was working on language, and I wasn't bad. I was a pretty good therapist, and I really cared. I think I had wonderful instructors. I had the best. Went to Bowling Green State University in Ohio, and oh my goodness, my voice instructor was Dr. Mel Hyman, and he would come in singing opera, and I learned so much from him. And then as I went on, I got to work with Joe Stemple, from Ohio. These are wonderful voice people, and they taught us basic things about swallowing and how it interacted with your voice. So, I mean, I was lucky, but I also had, in every area, I feel like I was really the winner of a lottery. I had beautiful and wonderful people to learn from. So I'm just saying that once I started to understand that these primary functions needed to be there for whatever disorder, I wasn't in conflict anymore. Because before, everybody was saying, well, we can't do that because so-and-so's got a article or a study and we don't do that kind of work. And I'd sit there thinking, well, okay, why? Because maybe it applied in that study, but there could be other reasons. And so once I was able to get past that and understand, and I think this is maturity and experience too, there's a time and a place for a lot of our techniques. I never was very good at doing some of the ones where you had to use clickers and have 4 clickers on your thumb. I'm exaggerating, but you had so much going on. I always felt like I wasn't quite getting that right, and I did fine as long as I did it at about half of what the intention was. But that's what I mean. There was a time and a place to learn that technique and to use it, and it was appropriate because it worked with that client. But that doesn't mean it will work with everyone. And this is not a one-size-fits-all.
Exactly. And it's very interesting because with this this view of the body and how everything works, everyone is a human, right? But like, all the airways are different. All the ways that the tongue move is completely different. And so to come in with this blanket idea of how you're going to fix someone or help them along the way, it's really misguided because it's so very specific. And we always say like, oh, we're doing the therapy tailored to the person. But this is just so very interesting because we're working with specific muscles, and the everything is very so specific, and the evaluation and the assessment of each piece and part is very extensive,
Right. And sometimes you have to get into the session and get into working with your client before you realize that you need another component or another point of view. So
yes.
I like the reason I like it is because it's another tool in my little tool chest, because and I have always been able to use different things, and when someone gives me a new idea, I can't wait to get in and try it with some new person. And I've been doing this for over 30 years, so you can see, I mean, I'm just thrilled that I chose to go into this field. When I was young and didn't know what I was going to go into, the reason I chose speech language pathology had to do with my younger sister had some problems, and my mother took her around the doctor in our little small town, found somebody for her. I still remember sitting there. I was the 5-year-old with my 2-year-old sister, sitting there wanting to play every game. I was so jealous. And this therapist was just fun and full of life, and she had good ideas, and she just played the interaction well with my sister, and my sister did well, and I would go home, and play the therapist because
Aw.
that's what big sisters do. But I was lucky because that was a really good role model and early on. And when I went to school, I remember I went to school thinking I might go into something else. When I came home, I was all signed up for speech language pathology stuff. And I remember my dad kind of looked at me like, he says, "Don't you have to take some the other things?" Like, I said, "Oh no, this is what I want to do." So he
Aw.
backed me. So that was good.
That is so sweet. I love that story. Like some people have these beautiful experiences with people that lead them on the way. And then sometimes it's just an idea. I know for myself and for Lynn, it was an idea of an idea that was planted of this is probably what you should do. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
really interesting how that came to be for you. And that's really so sweet.
Yeah, and I had a sister-in-law who was at Bowling Green at that time. It's very interesting. She she said because they were my brother and my sister-in-law were just older than me, and because I had played speech therapist for so long, and I can remember her saying, "I think this might be a great field, and Bowling Green has such a great department. Why don't you come up and visit?" And so don't you see? I think I was kind of predestined to be there, and I went, and it was a good fit, and it just felt right. And you know, I am so glad that I chose this because speech language pathology hits so many good things. I mean, there's a lot of things to study and know, structurally, anatomy, and those things that are hard. They're very hard, and you've got to memorize and you've got to study it. But there are also some things that help you become a different person, like learning how to interact and how to receive information and where to put it, and then how to help another person come through it too. I think it is one of those fields where every day when I come home, I actually feel grateful that I have had this job. And every day, I'm so grateful for one or two or three or all of my clients because they've all lift me up. And it's very
Yeah.
important because if I came home and didn't feel that, I don't know if I could have stayed this long. And I literally get up every day and look forward to seeing them. And I get up and finish coming home. Can't wait, to just think about the good things we've accomplished. I'm a lucky person to have that kind of job.
You are extremely lucky. And it does sound like those seeds were planted along the way to guide you that this is where you need to be. And how beautiful is that? It's interesting. I was honestly thinking about this on the drive here. How sometimes these seeds are planted and we just ignore, oh no, I'm going to do this. Or but when you're guided and you're led to be able to follow that, it does come to fruition of this like beautiful story, right? So
Right.
I think that's just so beautiful for you. And I think the cool thing about speech therapy is we have this beautiful connection with communication and having these beautiful communication just exchanges with our clients and our patients and the families. I mean, I think it's just it's such a great field to be in.
It is. And I'm hoping, that other people are having that same kind of joy. I hope that that's what their experience is too. And that's why I don't like, and maybe it's just me, but I don't see that we have to be at each other and challenging each other because, I think each of us has something to offer. And, there might be something to this particular approach later. You're going to find that patient that needed it. And you're going to think, thank goodness I listened to that other person, and this is a
Mhm.
good idea. And I think we don't need to be right all the time. I remember one time I gave a talk about the fine art of not being right.
Oh, I
And
love
it
that.
was interesting because you know what? I'm not. I'm not right all the time. And it's okay as long as I catch or change, But if I push through an idea that just is one that was taught to me at a certain point in life and I hang on to it with dear life, I'm not sure that I'm growing, and it's not good for anyone else either.
Correct. There's so much room for everyone. We sometimes we have this lack mentality that if we don't get all the clients, or if we don't do this, or if we don't do that, we're going to be in this place of lack. And there's so much opportunity and abundance out there, but you have to look at it from that perspective. And yeah, so anyway, so back to your kind of like point of even some of these ideas that people have, it maybe wasn't that it was right or wrong, but it was the catalyst that brought you to the next thing that you needed to be at.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of interesting too, because when I was in school at Bowling Green, I do remember at one time my professor, Dr. Hyman, he came back after he had taken a seminar, and he was so excited. And it happened to be on orofacial myofunctional disorders. And that was years ago. He was one of the earliest, and he says, "This is it." And he sat me down, and he was going through his notes in this book and all these things he had discovered. And he says, "I think you are going to be my myofunctional therapist." And I sat there because I had just read what ASHA had said, that it was a question and it had to be researched. And I'm thinking, I'm not even graduated yet. I don't think that I'm ready for this. But it was interesting. He gave me the fire to research and to listen and to consider new ideas. And I'm really grateful for that. And actually, after he died, his wife had his books in myofascial therapy, which he had put aside for me, and
That's so
and gave
sweet.
them to me. And so he didn't forget that, this was something he said, "I predict that this will be the way of the future if we can get out of our own way." And I think that's interesting because he really knew his anatomy, he knew music, he's such a smart person and such a good teacher. But he knew that the new channels were opening. And this was an area that we probably should be looking at. And I do remember him saying, not everything's exactly perfect, but that's what our job is. Our job is to look at it and figure out what works with this situation. So I'm so grateful for that. That was the first door that opened for me. Another door that got me into this is real strange because all my life I felt like I was doing my job pretty well. And, knock on wood, I didn't think I had hurt anyone. Everybody was getting better and, all that kind of stuff. And one day my husband came to me and he said, "I got this email." And I said, "Well, what?" And he said, "It's about orofacial myology. And the way I look at it, this is right down your alley." Now, why somebody would send this to my husband, I have no idea. But it did open my interest. I looked it up, and of course, now I had all these books from my professor, and I ended up starting to be interested again. And then one day, and I still remember this clear as a bell, I woke up and I was sitting there thinking about my day and realizing that I was pretty good at what I was doing. Things were going along. We were making the bills and, kids came, everything was fine. But I wanted to be good at something. I wanted to really know something well. And I thought, all right, you got this invitation to take this course. You got all these books that came up. And even though I kept turning away and saying, "No, not for me, I don't think it's me," I kept trying to resist. It kept coming back to me. And so I took the course. And, I'm glad. When I took the course, I found I knew quite a bit because I think my undergraduate program was excellent. I think my instructors were wonderful. And then this just kind of gave me, I had graduate work too in the areas, and it coincided, but this made me do some things that I wouldn't have done. I started to research on my own, taking more courses, and the more instructors I talked with, the more I learned. And I agreed with a lot of what everybody said, but sometimes I didn't. And it helped me become the person I wanted to become, a person who could look at something and analyze it and figure out what might be the best way to move. I think that's what I needed.
Wow.
To me, that was amazing.
Yeah. Wow, that's really significant. I mean, just like the email sent, and then these are the things that these are the little the miracles that are happening for you.
Yes.
And being able to recognize that. And I love that you said this phrase, get out of your own way, because that has been coming up for me a lot. And these old patterns that we have of going through the motions, and when something comes up, we keep just doing the same thing that we've always done. And we've got to stop. We have to get out of our own way. We have to allow beautiful things to come to us. We just have to realize it and just allow it to happen.
Right. I'm so glad you're seeing it, though, because I wish I had gotten there sooner. It's funny. I think I have to learn lessons more than once. Some people, they get it the first time through. Me, I need to be through it again and again. Sometimes you have to bump me right on the head, because I know it and I understand it when I'm with you, but I need the actual purpose to use the new knowledge. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. I have taken a lot of courses, and I've taken all excellent speakers, and I'm so impressed with what they have to offer. And I would tell you, even the ones that I participate in, if I don't get one new or different concept, then I'm disappointed. But I go in with the intention to get one different perspective, and I'm never disappointed. And that has really improved my attitude. It's improved everything about being a therapist, because I'm not expecting everyone to fill all my needs. I'm expecting to get some ideas. And I know this too. If I come out of a course and I have questions, or I feel like, gosh, I don't quite understand this, I take that as a good sign. Mm-hmm. I think it means that they got me to look at this differently and to pursue something differently. If I come out thinking I know it all, I'm really worried, because I don't think that's a healthy place. And I think that when I start to believe I know it all, it's time for me to get out. So
those are some great points. I mean, we go to these courses, these talks for answers, right? Yes. We go to get all the answers. And so, and even when we're evaluating, should we go here and do this training, or should we go there? We're looking, where's the benefit for me? Where am I going to get the answers? What is this going to produce? Right. And sometimes I was listening. There's a guy that I really, really enjoy. He said that, it costs so much to go to a certain talk or a course or whatever. But, and you think this is just the amount of money that I have to expend right now, but you don't know what that will turn into in the future. So he said, you might spend $100 on something, but it might become and bring you thousands of dollars. You might spend thousands of dollars on something, and that may turn into tens of thousands of dollars or $100,000. You don't know the impact of what you're investing in sometimes. And sometimes that is that trust, that leap of faith, that feeling, is this right for me? Am I aligned with this? And if you listen, sometimes that becomes something so big.
Yes, I think that's so true. I think we don't know when we go in, but if we go in with the right attitude, that we're looking to learn and not going in to find fault, not going in with the intention to catch somebody or to feel like we're shortchanged. I think if we have our attitude right, we can get something out of almost every place that we are. Mm-hmm. And I always try to live my life that way. And when I'm mentoring people, I try to help them get there. Because then I think if we can do that, we are ready and open to taking new knowledge. Lots of times I don't have a place to put the knowledge I'm studying right then. I'd like to tell you, that goes here and this belongs with that patient. But sometimes I'm just getting knowledge, a new perspective, and I don't even know where it belongs yet. Mm-hmm. And then I'm in therapy, and all of a sudden, I know where that belongs because that patient needed me at that moment. And I feel like having my toolbox there. That's why I say that all the time. I really think it's important to know that this is oral motor kinds of things are not in conflict with what you've already learned. You've learned wonderful things through your undergrad and your graduate stuff, and your schools are doing fabulous jobs. You need to understand they are, and we have wonderful teachers there. What we are adding is here's another little bit that might help you be able to tweak and use your information even better. And that's where I think we get into our conflict. People are like all or nothing. But I don't think the world runs that way. You know, it is, there's a lot of gray in
There's
this
two
world.
there's a lot of gray, and that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think the people who are strictly black and white, and I used to be one of those people, thinking a little more black and white, but that rigidity it caused a lot of stress, anxiety, depression. And when we can open ourselves to that gray area, and we don't have to latch on to anything, but if we allow that information to come through us, man, you can gain so much. And a lot of those, like for me, the anxiety that I had, I think about my sister. She's so beautiful, but she is like the most black and white person that I know. And her struggles are a result of that, you know? So I encourage her to just be a little more flexible, because then all those things kind of like, they start to go away. You know, the impact is more than you are aware.
It is. It is. We have a lot of courses and things coming up here in the future. It's going to give some people a chance to learn more broadly, I think. Now, I'm helping Mary Billings give that one course, and I'm sort of like Vanna White. You know, I'll be turning the cards and getting you a cup of coffee and helping you if you have a question, and I'll help you find where you're at. But Mary's the main speaker, and Mary really does a fabulous job helping people understand the concept from beginning to end. She helps weave the whole tone. And I'm always amazed because this is a person who has given this course several times, but every time after every course, she goes home and corrects all the mistakes she might find or anything that anyone suggests and adds new material. And so when I go to listen to her, I'm always thinking, wow, this is almost like a whole new course. There's
Wow.
something to learn because she presents it that way. She has, and she makes you become the owner of your information. I think it's a really good thing to listen to someone like that. I mean, I love also. I've worked also with Christy Gatto. I think she does a wonderful job, and Amanda Chastain is very different and does their work is excellent. I mean, I've taken all these extra courses, so I mean, you know, they're all good, and that's what I'm saying. I kept taking courses, and I would take them all again if they would let me, because I know I'll learn something that I might have missed the first time or the second time through. In September, we're hoping to have an advanced class that's even further along than we did one advanced class already this year, and we're going to add a doctor, an osteopath that's going to work with us on total body connection and primitive reflexes. But it's another step and another piece for our toolbox, showing us how the whole journey it is an isolated journey. And so that was what I was excited about. Now, in that particular course, I'll probably do a little more talking. I think I'm going to share things about neuromuscular facilitation. I'd like to do some ankylosing stuff. And then I want to do some actual unusual or challenging cases, just so that people could see, something that just walked through the door and here it is, but still see how you can get there, even if you don't. In these cases, I didn't know what to do when they first came through the door.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, and I don't think everybody knows exactly what they're going to do when they first come through the door, but I like to have a kind of a plan. And it was interesting because the particular cases I'm going to discuss are ones that I don't think we'd be looking for. And then it dawned on me, I should have been looking for this all along. Didn't even realize it. But it was nice to have that in my toolbox to be able to help, because they came for different reasons, but I had something that could get them where they needed to be.
Yeah.
So I think those are the good kind of case for me. At this point in my life, I need to take courses that will allow me to grow more, to be able to ask the questions, to be able to kind of pull over to the side of the road and think about this a bit. What's this mean for my practice and my patients? Because my patients, I mean, I probably get too close to them. I really enjoy them, and we become friends no matter what. And and their success is my success. And if they don't have it, then I'm just as worried as they are. So, I found that to be true.
Yeah. So the first course that you talked about was the Make the Connection course. And so we're hosting that. I'm hosting that here in, it's actually in Perrysburg, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
And that's going to be from July 24th through the 26th. And so this is kind of that foundations course of orofacial myofunctional disorders and therapy. And then the second course that you were talking about, Patty, is going to be this September, right?
Yes.
Yes. Or this fall.
Yeah. And it'll be in Cincinnati.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. And it's really interesting because, I say that this is kind of the bridge between Western medicine and the holistic community. So what I find is that the myofunctional therapy is like starting to boom very rapidly in the holistic community. And you hear more things about the primitive reflexes and things like that. So I think these courses are great and geared to information that is really applicable to kind of what's happening in the world right now, and where some of these communities are really looking for needed help.
Well, and I think it's important that the foundations, again, like when I talk to you about the primary functions of the mechanism, those are pretty established. That's what that mechanism is for. And then the overlays are the ones that we use for speech, voicing, and stuff. And it's the same way with this. You want people who can lay the foundation, the primary information that is sort of factual, and, here's what we know research-wise. And then we need, and that has to be in a certain kind of delivery, it has to make sense, it has to be scientifically based, but then there will be overlaid issues as to how does this affect the rest of the mechanism, the rest of the body. That's why I think it's so important, because we have a lot of people saying a lot of things, and like I said before, some of it will be useful and some of it isn't. So we have to be selective, and that's part of, I think we have to listen and take away what we can use, and be selective about how we pick the information that will help our patients.
Yeah. And I think because there are so many people out there doing their own thing, it's avenues like this where, I hope that people are able to say, hey, this is Patty, and she is really a beautiful person who I'd like to learn from, because, wow, she has a really kind of different perspective that maybe I haven't thought about before. Or I love that perspective because that's what I think, and I want to know that as well. I want to learn from somebody who is like that,
And I do too. That's who I choose to. I wanted to be able to make the right decisions based on the fact that I could research it myself. There's a lot of great research out there. Robin Walsh has done wonderful research. Linda D'Afrio, I know Mary Billings. There's just all kinds of wonderful research out there if we want to look it up. But some of us don't have time to look it up all the time. So these people have put it and posted it for us. So if you go to their sites and you look up things, Oh my, and Christine, I can't think of her last name, but she has wonderful stuff too. But these sites are available for us to be able to look this up so that it isn't that it isn't researched, and it isn't that we don't have documentation. We do. I just don't think we all know where to find it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but when I'm with patient back to back to back to back, I don't have time to go and pull an article and hand it to the doctor who just called me 10 minutes ago. I will do it, but it has to be tonight, not this minute, because
Exactly.
and that's what I'm trying to say is that we have the research, we have these people that have put this stuff together for us. They're good advocates. We just need to use that because
Mm-hmm.
that's going to help all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need to speak about each other, our colleagues, in I think more positive tones. I have worked in the schools. I've worked at the university. I've worked in the hospitals. I've taught a private practice. I mean, I think that nursing homes, each one of those places has its own glory. And there's something about it that is just so endearing and so good. And it's a way to learn. I'm glad and I am grateful for each one of those opportunities. And believe me, I walked in green as grass. I didn't know a thing. But it was some kind therapist there that took me by the hand and said, here's where we go, and helped me become a better therapist. And I'm so grateful to every opportunity that's happened. Whereas I think sometimes today, people just come out with one idea of what they want to do, maybe just hospital or maybe just nursing home or whatever. And I don't know that that's going to give you as broad of an understanding. And as you mature in your job, you're going to find that you have more questions and you may want to learn more of those other things. I'm grateful because I think that's the person I have become because of the experience these people gave me and that
Mm-hmm.
they shared. And I have never felt like I've been competition with anyone. I never felt like there was anything other than I'm just going to be here to try to help as much as I can. And they gave me that. So I'm really appreciative.
Oh, I'm really glad that you had those experiences. I mean, that does shape you into who you are. And in having that gratitude mindset, just being thankful, that provides so much joy and blessings to your life,
Yeah.
being able to realize that.
Yes. Yes. I do have that. And I'm glad because like I said, I still get up every morning and jump out of bed. Can't wait to see my people.
I love that. I love the interactions that I have. So I only work with adults and mainly older adults, and I just love them. And my husband too. We just moved my dad into independent living. That has been an adjustment for him, but we go a couple times a week, and you walk through, you have all the old men and women on the side saying hi as you come in, and my husband and I have been saying we just love them so much. There's so much wisdom and lessons and things like that. So when I work with my clients, I always tell them from the beginning, I'm here to teach you things, but I also want to learn from you as well because you have a wealth of information that I don't have. And so that's one of my primary goals with working with the people that I do is like, man, I try to soak up as much information as I can because like I'm not here to just bring ego and information to them. Like, no, this is a connection together. And so being able to take advantage of that.
Well, Laura, you're a blessing for all of us. We need this kind of approach. And it's nice to be able just to get to know a person and know, you know, they're not just a bunch of facts. They're just another person, struggling along their own journey. So
Mm-hmm.
it has
Yeah.
it's been lots of fun to talk with you today. I'm really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else that you might want to contribute? Okay, let's just shoot back just a little bit. So when we're talking about the primary functions, airway and deglutition, eating, swallowing, masticating, swallowing. Of course, those are the things.
Breathing.
And yes, breathing.
Yeah.
Oh, airway. Yes,
Yeah,
airway,
yeah.
breathing. Yes. And yeah, so when we come out as a newborn, these are the things that we can do, or hopefully we can do, right? Breathe and swallow. Whether we're breastfeeding or we're taking formula from a bottle, like that is what we need to sustain life.
Yes, and we use those techniques, and you move from there for all the overlaid things. But basically, that's what we're looking for in the young child. Now, there is, of course, differences between feeding activities, and you have to have, of course, special training for that. There's lots of things that will help us do that particular function, and it's much better trained, I think, today. I think lots of the young therapists are getting good training with that. But that leads into starting to look for characteristics that might be oral motor, and then as the child matures, and when they get to an age where they can handle certain things, some of the oral motor things will come into play, and you'll be starting to work on those. It is not feeding and oral motor are not exactly the same thing, but I think they're related on a continuum because they are in the oral mechanism. So, and I think some people get confused because they want it to be the same, and they also, there is some confusion about how much training you need to do this, but you do need training. And then I also find that when you get to the older end or the other end, because if you follow the swallow through the lifetime, at the end, or later, there can be dysphagia, there can be breakdowns in the way we swallow and the way we use the mechanism. And some of them are interruptions, like, is there a physical thing in our way? Some ties, buccal ties, tongue tie, that can be part of it. What's the difference between an anterior and a posterior tie? How much is that going to affect things? And does it affect, your voice? Yes, could. Does it affect your fluency? Yes, it could. Your speech sounds? Yes, it could. Your eating, your chewing. And yet, when I came through school, we were taught that if they could stick their tongue out slightly, it was acceptable. But, of course, I worked with those people, and they would get better, and they could do better. And I have some personal, challenges myself. I have to exercise and do certain things, so I understood that. But then one day, here again, it's almost like a small miracle. It was a grandfather who had the grandchild who was coming for therapy, and he says, well, I realize that we're working really hard. And he says, and she is getting better, and there's wonderful speech, but why wouldn't we make it a little bit easier for her to do it? And I stood there kind of like, oh, good point. And then he had somebody who did this particular kind of release, a surgeon, as a friend of his. And I started working with him, and I learned so much. But, my training had not been there.
Yeah.
It came later. And now, honest to God, I really, truly am so blessed because, and I think you're going to have Dr. Notestein speak. He is so wonderful, and he is such a blessing. But what I love about him is he is like me. He can look at each individual situation, and it's not one size fits all. Not everybody needs a tongue tie release. Some do, and some don't. And that's where we get into the controversy. You see, you can't just look at it. You have to do an evaluation of the whole mechanism, the function, the use, the structure, to determine whether this is going to be better with a release or can it be really good without it.
Yeah.
And you'll love talking to him because he is just such a knowledgeable man. And he will help you get those ideas that, this is what you're looking for. And if you have these things impacting or getting in the way, well, maybe we should look more carefully and help somebody.
Yeah, I mean, even just talking about my journey with that, like I was not aware of tongue ties at all. Went to the course, realized I had a tongue tie myself, but it was like, well, you're kind of on the cusp. Like you can kind of do all the things, but so maybe, maybe not. And then we went to that little follow up that you had that was so beautiful. And Dr. Notestein did a little eval on all of us, and he was like, "Oh, I think yours would it's all just fascia. You probably won't even bleed or anything. It'll be easy." So when it came up that we had this opportunity, I was like, "Oh, okay, that's great." Excuse me. And I was the last one that went, and it was actually pretty extensive. He went pretty deep in there, and he had said that he didn't get as much as what he wanted to because of I have a lot of vascularity. There's a lot of nerves. Like we saw nerves right there. Like, so there were things he was working around. But it was really interesting to me because I was just thinking about this literally this week. So when I first started working, I was in an acute rehab. And the rehab director was very proficient in fees. And so I was watching fees. And the one day I was like, hey, can you just do it on like practice? I want to see me, you know? So we did a fees and she was like, oh, you have premature spillage to the vallecula and like that. And so as I'm like working with patients, later on, I said, you know, this is my normal is that I have premature spillage to the vallecula. I'm aware of that. So if things happen in the future, if something changes in the future, that could end up in a really serious problem. Well, I would say in the past 6 months or so, about twice a week, I would have an episode where I'd cough on my food. I'm like, oh crap, it's going down the wrong pipe. And you know this information of, okay, well, I probably should do this different, probably should do this, compensation, all this stuff. And so when it came up this opportunity to be released, I thought, well, maybe this will actually help my swallow as well, you know? So it's been amazing. I just have to say, it's been so amazing. But it took a couple weeks of doing the exercises and being released. And I would say, it's probably been like a good couple weeks of like no swallowing issues whatsoever. And I was thinking like, wait a second, I wonder if I had a fees done, if I wouldn't have any more premature spillage to the vallecula. And I was just like, this would be so crazy to see, you know? But I just think about all of the patients that I've had and that, you know, they didn't have a problem, but maybe they were having some kind of problem and they were compensating. Then they couldn't use those compensations anymore. Their muscles were getting weak. And I go, I didn't even look hardly at their tongue. You know, I didn't look underneath. I didn't look at the structure. That wasn't a piece of the puzzle. And knowing what I know for myself now, that's an important piece of the puzzle. I am so excited to be able to offer a low-cost healing option for moms out there that are overcome by guilt from medical decisions. I am healing the guilt from making medical decisions early on in my children's life that I honestly didn't know any better. As a result, they have chronic illness, and I am often reminded that they have their own journeys too. Love is how we heal our guilt, and we don't have to do it alone. Join us in Healing Medical Mom Guilt. You can register on the website at yourlightllc.com/scheduling.
And you keep in mind you're a single study research project, and write it down because you're going to have single study research projects throughout your career, but it's going to help you get patterns. That's what I do. Every time I'm going through, I write down what the situation is. For example, you know, I know most of the time they are functioning, they're eating, they're nourished, but they're uncomfortable in one way or another, maybe neck pain, some other kinds of things, some spillage. And it's so interesting because if I open myself, I can see the pattern. Mm-hmm. And if I don't, I kind of find myself with back my old training where it says, "Oh, good enough, close enough," and that's not really true. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that you said that. That's really good information.
Yeah, no, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the information and just your presence at the Make the Connection course. And I found the information to be so valuable. And even though right now I'm not using it extensively in what I'm doing, that knowledge base has, I mean, come back to me so much already. You know, like initially the cost of the course was scary, but it was just a feeling of, this is something I need to do. There were these tiny miracles and these seeds that were along the path that said, okay, I can't ignore this anymore. This is what I have to do. And like I said, even though it's not like completely integrated into my practice right now, the information that I've gained myself and in the healing for myself and my children is just unbelievable. I mean, it's just this new perspective on things. Like my daughter is she's coming in and out of relapsing, sucking her thumb. And the other day I was like, son of a gun. I looked in her mouth. Her tonsils are ginormous now. It looks like possibly her adenoids are enlarged as well because the palate's down. She doesn't have very much airway. And it's like, okay, I can't get upset at her because of this, what I feel is a habit, right? But that it's probably what she needs right now in order to achieve an open airway. So we go back to these primary functions. There's these things that happen because we're trying to eat. We're trying to eat food and we're trying to breathe. So I just am so thankful that this was part of my journey and I was able to learn from you and Mary, and I hope for great success with the course that we're bringing here and further success for you guys in the future. And and in everything that you do, Patty, because you just bring such a beautiful presence to whatever you do. And your knowledge is just, it's gold. And this perspective that you have of being open and gathering just tiny bits of information along the way and knowing that they're going to play out and they're going to be useful in the moment that you need it. It's just, I mean, I had no idea that's where we were going today, but that is gold right there.
Well, thank you. You know, one thing when we do our Toledo talk, I'm going to bring and try to get with Mary to bring you a book on that thumb sucking, and you are going to, it's the most positive thing you've ever read. And I hope that we can get something for everybody that attends. That would be fun if we could get one of those.
That would be so great.
It teaches you how to be positive about everything. And it's hard, when you come up against a wall and you think, okay, I've tried everything. How do you pull that positive note out? Anyhow, I'll see if I can find it. Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate this conversation so much. And I just hope that everyone else who's listening has taken some of these beautiful nuggets that you've just left and do some great things with it as well.
I feel they will. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Miracle in Time. If you would like to explore a theme or know someone perfect for this podcast, please fill out a form on yourlightllc.com/podcast. If you would like to learn more about my services, you can visit the website at yourlightllc.com. I want you to remember that with all life's ups and downs, you are divinely held and guided throughout your journey. Don't miss out on this miracle in time.